What's good, agents? Welcome to the 6th episode of the TCG Core podcast. I know it's been like, I don't know, 2 months, month and a half. It's been a while, but we're back and we have a lot of stuff to cover. But we've managed to condense it down to like 4 or 5 things. But before we get into all that, how are you guys doing?
Oh man, good life. I am, like you said though, I'm excited though because even though it's been a while, they kind of, like you said, it kind of gives us a lot to talk about. And looking at this list we got, I'm ready. There's a lot of things that have happened, and I think it's gonna shake up not just one game, but all the game. And we'll get into that, but all the games that we're looking at. So I'm excited.
I've missed you boys, honestly. Like, people on the street have had to listen to me ramble as like they don't care, as I just go on about my opinions about cardboard. No one's listening. Now, I'm more than glad to be back. It's been busy. Hopefully, we get back on track.
Bet. All right, so first topic. You know, we started off, I would say, as a Digimon podcast. After today, we are kind of expanding into some other games. So Digimon Nationals, Finals, whatever, were announced. People are upset. People are confused. First thoughts, does anybody want to take the floor? Because, like, I just kind of caught up this morning and was, like, scratching my head a little bit. So does anybody have any initial impressions they want to share?
I mean, I'll say this. So yeah, it's been a minute since I've actually been in the Digimon scene. And I literally caught the news at the tail end of this past week. I think somebody just like sent me the Twitter post or whatever it was, and I'm like, wait, what? This can't be real. Like, this got to be, you know, a hoax. But to kind of sum up to those who don't know, basically what the deal is that before, we all knew at the start of, you know, the new Digimon season was they did away with store champs. Like, store champs are still happening, but if you won a store champs, you no longer got an invite to nationals. So everybody had their speculation on what that meant and what it would do to the game. And it was basically now your only in is top 16 or regional. Well, the news that was announced is now nationals, anybody can go. It's an open invite. You can literally just buy a ticket and show up. The first question I posed was, well, what does that mean for the people who have already top 16 regionals? Because regionals have already happened, several of them, you know? And basically they said, well, we don't want to forget about y'all, so we're just going to give you guys a round one and two bye. So obviously I have in top 16 a regional, so it doesn't really affect me as of right now, but I'm still thinking of that, and I'm like, I don't know how those people would take that, because in my mind, I'm like, yeah, cool, I get a two round auto win, but do you really want that? You know, like, do you want, like, I don't know how that is as a player, as a competitive player. I've been out of the competitive scene TCG wise for a while, so I don't really know what that means. I mean, you guys probably chime in on that better, but yeah, I was kind of shocked because I felt like the whole doing away with store champs thing and only limited to regionals was, we want to make this a more exclusive event, more premier event. We want, you know, more of the competitive scene. So everybody's like, okay, we got to step our game up. You got to go for that top 16 out of 500 plus players at any given regional. And now it's just show up. So yeah, I don't know. We were talking about it right prior to this. It's like those mixed messages from Bandai and everything. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I think the only crucial step you missed there, besides show up, is pay me first, then show up. Pay me first, then show up. Yeah. I mean, if I had to boil it down, biggest pro, man, like these regional prizings that they're just handing out for the next little bit, like just the participation pack, all being SRs or better, is crazy to me. They're all exclusive arts. They're gorgeous. Like, I want to be mad about it, but that is great. Prizing for nationals is always good. It always will be good. So I'm not surprised. But again, I don't got to earn my way in. I did so well at a regional that I get to play less game at the nationals, which that really doesn't lead from A to B to me in my mind. Like, I get it. Like, a round one bye, I could see it. You're like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to get bodied round one. Like, give me the first one and I will pick it up from there. But 2 rounds, you don't got to play. You're fine. They really could have still done this in a way of, like, if they were worried about ticket sales, I think they could have done a lottery of like 100 people. Like, hey, 100 people apply, put your name on the board. If we call your name and you pay for your ticket, you're in. I think that would have went over way better than this current situation, because you got people like me where it's my main game. It's still the game I want to be the most competitive in, but I keep not making time for it because what is the point? And you nailed it. You undervalued store championships. I'm glad the pricing got better. I'm glad the support got better. God, where's my incentive though to try?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting too is it's like when you think about like what is the issue? Is the issue there's not enough people participating? Is the issue that you're not making enough direct money off of like the event? Because like I was just kind of doing the math in my head of like, okay, so let's say you have what I don't know how many regionals there are in a season. I want to say there's like 8,
6 to 8, I would say.
Yeah, say 6 to 8, give or take.
So if we want to be generous and say 10, just so I can do math really quickly, it's 160 people, right? That would get the invite. And then when you remove store champs, finals is only going to be 160 people. Do they want? I guess they want a lot more, I guess. And they made that decision after they said that if you play in store champs, like it doesn't mean anything. You just get fancy cards, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, those cards are pretty cool, but it's like, I'm confused because when I went last time for finals, I don't know how many people were there, but those LCQs were going for quite a while. Like, I don't know if capacity was an issue, but it couldn't have been with the amount of LCQ invites that they were giving out, like free candy at the event. So, I'm just more confused about like, I guess like if people want to pay and just go, I don't know though if your numbers are gonna be better, worse, or the same as when it was you had to like earn your invite and then you show up to do an LCQ. Because I guess now there's no reason for LCQs, so people aren't gonna be going to just kind of like play in those side events. I guess I'm just kind of confused about like why this is the better model, and I feel like this decision must have been made. I would like to think at the top of the year, and they just didn't say anything to anybody. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't just, I mean, I do, right? Because you want to make your money off your regionals, whatever. You want to be scummy about it, that's fine. But like, there's no way that decision wasn't made at the top of the year, right? Like, there's no way somebody didn't already know, hey, we're gonna make these open. They should have just been honest and communicated that in the beginning, and just kind of like went from there. I think that's like Bandai's biggest issue lately is like their communication kind of sucks. Not kind of, it does. I mean, look at Dragon Ball, right? Like, I have never seen a community get baited and switched so bad, which I don't think, I mean, that's a whole other conversation that we can have later, but like, I think that could have been a lot better too, just like this whole regionals thing. Like, if you just told people what was up, I think people would give you some grace about it, I think.
I really wish Bandai would hire someone to just like translate or whatever they need, because the fact that I've had to correct actual suppliers, actual distributors of product on stuff for like this reprint set that's coming out for Digimon. I was ahead of the game because I wanted to order as much as I could out the get-go. And then I'm like, hey, that product's being delayed. Do I have to get my pre-orders in now or can I wait? And my distributor's like, I don't know. Let me get back to you in like a week because we don't know what's going on. Like, every Bandai game right now feels like its own experiment. Like, we're all different vaults in Fallout. Okay, we all got different things going on. They're just going to keep testing the waters and see which one works.
Yeah, and I think that's the ultimate thing. Like Agent was saying, is like, I would like to think there's a bigger, like, more complex thought process to it, but I honestly think it just boils down to they don't really know what they're doing. I really do think, like Frawley said, I think it's just a trial and error. Like, we're just going to experiment because, yeah, it could be, maybe they did know, but they're really bad at strategic planning or whatever it is, or communicating or whatever the case may be, why they waited till now. Or like you said, it could have just been being scummy and just say, we're not going to announce anything because we know it's going to tank regional sales, right? I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't have played. I'm signed up for a regional towards the later in October. I probably wouldn't have signed up for it if I knew, because my only thing about playing regionals is to get my Nats invite. I didn't get it last year, that's why I didn't go. But I'm like, if I get it this year, then that gives me reason to fly across the country to go to LA. But now I can just go to LA and not feel like I'm wasting a trip, because why would I go all the way to LA to try my luck at an LCQ? I don't go and then my trip's wasted, right? So it's like, I want to go because I qualify, because I get in. Well, I'll do my thing and try at a regional. Well, now it's like, well, why do I need to? You remove the effort aspect to it. So I think it's like, I would like to think that there's a bigger, like I said, a bigger plan to it, but ultimately common sense is telling me, is just kind of steering me to say they just don't know what they're doing. And like you said, I feel like, because I've been playing DBS for a while, I've been kind of dabbling in One Piece just to kind of feel out the market and see what it's like, because just trying different games, and I'm like, it just seems like overall all Bandai games, even if they feel like separate entities, the rollout of every single one and how they handle their quote unquote competitive scene is way too similar in how disorganized it is. So it leads me to concern of like, I just don't think Bandai understands how to run a competitive scene. Their games are good. I do think that the like game mechanics, I mean, that's just me. I played I like Digimon, I like Dragon Ball, I like, how the games work. One Piece looks cool. But game design is one thing, competitive structure is a totally different thing. So I just personally, for me, and this is one of those things where we could eventually branch off to, and I've come back to a lot, is I wish Digimon or even Bandai in general would adopt a similar, maybe not the same, but a similar competitive structure like Pokemon, where the Pokemon gives you such an incentive to grind a season rather than, because here's the other thing. Let's just say I get my top 16 at a regional, the very first one in, what is it, August or whatever it is, July, August. Do I have to even play until January when Nationals comes around? No, I can literally just sit back and wait, right? And play like a week or two before, which a lot of players I know did. With Pokemon, you can't do that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of, like Frolly said, I think there's a lot of experimentation with Bandai's thing, and I just don't think they have the right people or the right leadership to kind of coordinate that, at least from what I've seen.
What's interesting though is it seems like Bandai has splintered their own little division for the card game. So I just saw that this video popped in my YouTube feed like today, but it's from 3 days ago. They had like a brand announcement for like Bandai card games. They have their own like logo and everything. So it looks like they're trying to like splinter like the card games into their own division, which you would think would have been done up until like now, but like maybe that will provide some level of structure in the next probably year or so, honestly, across these games. Because I also think that they struggle because like these are their first major games outside of Japan that are like global, right? Like they, like from what I understand, Battle Spirits has been in Japan for as long as like Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's been consistently good. So I think that they just struggle taking whatever model they use in Japan outside of Japan, and it's kind of like, oh god, their world is so big, what do we do in these different markets, in these different regions where like things are totally different. And I think that's also where they struggle, is like, to your point, they don't have, like, they need the right team to be able to work in these different markets and like understand what do people actually want. Because like, yes, if I like right now, honestly, I'm kind of upset that I paid for a online regional in October when Dragon Ball has one at the same time. Dragon Ball at least incentivizes me to play because they started doing this thing where like you get these like reward cards that you can go and redeem at the finals, and they give you like a bunch of like special things. They even have this thing going on where like if you bring 5 people to your regional or something, like to your finals, they give you each like some gold, or not gold, like silver foil altar cards. And like it's like, why doesn't Digimon do something similar, right? Like you clearly are now this is the first time they're doing it for Dragon Ball, so maybe their thought is like, well, to Frolly's point, it's an experiment of like, if this works in Dragon Ball, we'll do it everywhere else. But like, yeah, that's an incentive, because I'm honestly right now thinking about dropping out of both or getting my money back, because I think you can try and get a refund up to a certain date for both the Digimon ones and just switch over to Dragon Ball for both those events. I don't see a reason to play in Digimon. The convention center is 20 minutes away from me, so like I might as well just go and try my hand there. But it's very weird. It's very strange.
I feel like they don't have, like you said, the reason they're now creating something seems like they thought they could manage it on their own, and then being proven that they can't, or that like they can do it a little bit, or they nail certain things, they're like, cool, we need like a team for this. And I really think they need a way of adopting stuff into North America, because I feel like as much as every Bandai game has landed in America, like Canada has really suffered from like lack of tournaments and lack of regionals. And I don't know if it's because no one wants to do it, or we got like too much landmass or some shit. Like, I don't know what their reason is, but they don't have brand ambassadors. They don't have someone to anchor the game in that region. And like, there's no clear communication, because I think, yeah, it's easy to have a grand conspiracy about why this is all happening, but I think they're just flying by the seat of their pants, and we will figure it out when we figure it out. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's not that big a deal as long as we're getting paid. And I mean, I'd like to think in a less, like, I just signed up for that new Digimon regional in November, and I signed up for it because, man, the prize cards look so good, and I really just wanted the participation packs. I think they stepped it up, which is why I'm still going to participate in it. But it's hard to keep a level of passion for the game that I have, because I'm looking at news for Digimon every day. Every day I'm looking at the new cards, and I'm looking at what's coming out, and I'm planning like my stuff, but it's hard for me to be like, if I had something conveniently close, or if I at least could make the travel for something, I think I would go out of my way to do so. And right now, incentivization seems to be the word we keep saying, like on repeat. So I don't know if it's that. I don't know if they have a strange mentality where they think that if Dragon Ball goes down, and Dragon Ball's our most like coveted game, like we got to bring it back. Like everything else feels like a stepchild. Like Digimon, we keep getting Dragon Ball's hand-me-downs, and like we have for a long time. Like every time Dragon Ball gets something cool, they try it out in Digimon. Some things stick, and some things don't. Premium packs for Dragon Ball still exist, still work all the time. They're trying to relaunch them for BT14 for Blast Ace. They didn't work the first time. So we do keep getting their hand-me-downs, and some things work and some things don't because it's a totally different market and a totally different game. And I think it's hard when you treat everything the same way.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. My bad. Mike, go.
No, you're straight. I was just gonna quickly add about markets. What's interesting is, and I've said this on stream I think a few times, that I think they forget how big, specifically with Dragon Ball, it is in like South and Central America, but specifically Mexico. The fact that like Dragon Ball has not taken over that region in terms of a card game is wild. Like, make some freaking cards in Spanish. Like localize some of these games, and I would bet money that they would do very well in specific regions, because like I always used to think with Dragon Ball, like, remember when Dragon Ball Super was around and they literally sold out stadiums for people to watch the final 2 episodes of Jiren versus Goku, and like that should tell you everything you need to know. Like, yes, that community or the communities there may not be as into card games, but the gateway is pretty. You can do something about it. Because even when I was at Comic-Con with the whole Dragon Ball experience thing they had outside, like Dragon Ball Xenoverse was beside fighters, was beside the card game, beside some figures. Like, there's a lot they could do.
Yeah, and I think to your point, I think that's one of the reasons why I would like to think, again, I'm looking at this from like, you know, what I just learned like in all my schooling and everything. Like the term globalization just keeps coming into my head because it's like, you know, you have this IP, right, that still talking Dragon Ball is so wildly known. I mean, across the globe, but to your point, like in South Central America and in those regions there that know about it, and you said it perfectly, is it's a gateway, right? All you need is a personal connection to the IP. I was so like terrible, like deathly afraid of like trying the card game because I'm like, oh my god, this is so intimidating or whatever, but I wanted to just because I love the IP so much. Like, I love the property. Like, I'll watch it, you know, and all it literally took was, you know, a couple nights of us sitting down and going through it, picked up the game, fell in love with it. I can see, however, and I think this is why they're going that route of like, instead of this kind of tacking onto what Frawley's point is, instead of fixing the issue, instead of like saying, hey, look, we do have a good game, we do have a, let's like, instead of just giving hand-me-downs and just saying, let's cater and kind of simplify it a little bit, or what, and they're going this whole other route. It's like, I don't really think in a broader like topic of it, I don't think they truly understand like how to, like you guys were saying, cater to specific markets. It's like, you don't need to do anything about the property. The property does all the work for you. You know, the content is there. You guys just need to just figure out what works in specific regions, and figure out the individual markets, figure out how to unify them, and go from there. I mean, yes, it's really hard when a lot of these games launch in Japan, and Japan typically gets everything first. They have to, you know, and it works okay, and then they, like you said, they kind of just like try to like copy paste and put that somewhere else. But even with Pokemon, where Pokemon is everywhere, I mean literally in almost every major market, right? They're able to do well in every single one. Now, they do change up specific things, and like, you know, but overall they're able to unify the game. And I'm like, if you can do that with a property like Pokemon, you should be able to do that with a property like Digimon, with Dragon Ball, with any of these. And it's like, I don't know if they've just cracked that formula. Like you said, they just don't have the team in place. I'm not sure. There's some kind of missing piece, but it's not the game, and it's not the property itself. So again, that just kind of leads me back to, I really feel like it's somewhere in the development team.
Yeah, I don't know, it's mind blowing. But that being said, I feel like this conversation I've been seeing everywhere for the past like month, and like, I don't know, maybe I don't help this conversation in the sense that I haven't really been playing a lot of Digimon lately for various reasons. Nothing about like the game itself, more just I just haven't been playing. Do y'all think the game is dying? Because I feel like
he said it. He said it.
I feel like
he said it.
Are like really
Thumbnail.
like it's like a
We just
real,
got canceled.
It's like a real conversation. I keep seeing everybody talking about the game is dying. I'm like, I didn't know that. I don't know who wants to take the floor first.
I think it's easy clickbait. It makes a really good thumbnail. It makes a really good talking point.
I mean, that's got to be the title, right?
This is bandless speculation all over again, man.
Yeah, for me, to your point, same thing. I haven't not been playing the game because I don't like the game. I mean, if I had time, but for me, it's been personally just life stuff, right? I've had a lot of things come up personally in the last month and a half that has taken like my free time. So the reason I haven't been playing the game is simply just because of that. But if I had the time or was able to dedicate like I was when I was streaming regularly and everything, I'd still be playing. I don't have, like I said, I don't have a problem with the game. I think, and we talked about this in our like group chat, prior to getting on here, was I feel like there's probably more, but for me, there's two specific issues that I see is the inconsistency in their set releases. And I don't just mean in timing, but I also mean in quality, because you'll have some set releases that are just bangers that are like, holy crap. Like I've got 6 new decks out of this thing. I've got pieces that go into other, and you like basically blow up the format. But then you have other ones that are like, we only got 2 cards basically. Like, what is this? So I feel like that right there alone, I feel like that's what we're going through right now, is that the format is really stale. There's really not a lot of, and then we don't really have anything to look forward to because the reprint set, albeit, sorry, Frolly, Gamma's cool, but that's like all we're getting, right? Like you're just getting Gamma stuff. So you can play that and it's a cool deck. I've seen some stuff on it, but what else are we getting? So that it's not leading to excitement, I feel like, in the player base. So what are we looking at now till BT14, which is what, November, I think?
End of November,
right?
Yeah.
End of November. So, and we're only just starting September. So, I mean, think about how far, that goes. So I think it's that, and I'm going to say the other clickbaitable thing. We need more IRL events. We need more in-person, whether it's small locals, more, and we just covered the whole thing about regionals and all that. Just in general, in a generalization point, is we just need more ways to play other than just. I love Discord calls. We've talked about the advantages of all that, and I love hanging with y'all. But it's like if you have more in-person events where you can go play, even if the pricing is like a couple packs or whatever, it just gives you a reason to play the game. I think those two things would greatly help not letting the game die, but like just it
wouldn't get as stale so fast.
Exactly. Just kind of keep it up, I guess, is what I would be looking at.
I mean, to add on to that, every game I play has an off season, right? Like regardless of what you do, there's an off season. And right now, Digimon has done this 2 years in a row where their store championship ends and we have a lull. Like this is the last time last year where I started doing funny jank tournaments for locals just to keep it fresh. Just because we needed something, and I was looking down the pipeline and I'm like, cool, we have 2 starter decks coming out and a really cool starter deck event in October and nothing else. This is also the first time 2 starter decks don't line up with a set release, right? Like, so that's, I mean, granted, this looks like, if we look at, instead of a year as a breakdown of like, January is the start of the year, December is the end of the year, we look at this like a financial calendar, like Q1 to Q4. This is the start before we go back to Q1, because everything's done, all products, everything is hopefully hit target markets. But we are relaunching with Blast Ace, and with so many mechanics and with so much new stuff, this seems like a fresh season. This feels like the start of something new again. And I feel like that's also echoed by the fact that they're redoing the original 8 Kids again with new stuff, where this is a relaunch. And I agree, like this feels like the first time where I've like, oh, I have not played Digimon, and I haven't really had a reason to look at stuff. And I've looked at what to build when it comes out. But right now, with there not being anything, I'm kind of taking a break, and I'm not incentivized to go to nationals and grind out regionals unless I haven't got my invite, which I have not. But I grind for store championships, so I think we're at that really big lull point where I don't think Digimon's dying. I think Dragon Ball has scared a lot of people, because Dragon Ball is such a big name, like we had just mentioned, like we didn't even shout out Brazil with how much Brazil loves Dragon Ball. Like people love Dragon Ball. I think, and like this is, I don't have a business backing as a degree. I don't have any kind of like business entrepreneurship in my brain. But I do think when I look at Bandai making money hand over fist in Japan for these sets, and them not seeing a dime out of Dragon Ball because they don't have it as a card game, they only have it as a gacha game on the phone. I think they're like, man, it's doing well in North America. People in North America still love this game. We got to bring it back to Japan. If we have both markets making us the money, I think that's where they start to see it. That's why I also think if Digimon is dying, I think we're at a low point. I think we're at a boring point, but it's so successful in Japan. They are 3 sets ahead of us, and we see stuff being printed, so it's not dying unless people stop buying. But I think Dragon Ball has scared a lot of people because Bandai is not Konami, where they are known for their card game, and that's not to say it, but like that is a huge point of it. And I think this is the point where Bandai either pivots and goes, we are a TCG company, and we're going to do that, and that is going to be our way forward. Or this game will serve us really well for 5 to 4 years, and then we can kill it off and revisit what to do with it next.
And the sad part is that has been the history of Bandai and card games and outside of Japan forever, right? And like it's just weird because yes, to your point, Dragon Ball doesn't exist specifically in Japan as like a card game, but it used to, right? Like what the Dragon Ball Super Card Game is, and I bring this up all the time, people look at me like, what are you talking about? The Dragon Ball Super Card Game is IC, or was it like IC Dragon Ball Cardist or some shit? It was like some weird name, but it's literally the same game. They changed some artwork, they changed some stuff, but it's mostly the same. It was actually a cooler game because you could take your cards and scan them on a little scanner thing, and you could play it online, and it had full graphics and basically the thing that they're like, oh my god, this is so hard to make. They had a baby version of that. Like, I was in college, so like 2014, and like that was the proto version of Dragon Ball Super Card Game, and for some reason they didn't just port that over here. Like they just, and the crazy part about it is like the online version wasn't English. Like I could buy cards on Amazon, scan them, and play it online, and with no issues. And so like, if you look at Fusion World, it is the exact same. Like if the artwork and all that, it's recycled. And so it's just weird because like, as I think we keep saying, Bandai they're just trying to do a million things at once without taking a step back and saying, why are we doing what we're doing? And like, can we put a little bit of order here? Because the fact that some games have online clients, some have baby versions of the clients, some just have tutorials. It's like, you should decide off rip, are we going to build this game with a client? The short answer to that should probably be yes, because that seems to be where Bandai kind of, I mean, they're right, a gaming like company. I mean, they do a lot of stuff, way too many things, but like games is also a big part of their background, right? Like there's no reason why they shouldn't have an online client that is the best in the business. Like there's no reason, just based on the fact, the number of anime games that they have through Bandai Namco, like they have access. But like, to the original question of, is this game dying? Me personally, I don't think it is either. Like, I think that like people saying, oh, well, there's less people at certain events, or I'm not seeing as many people at online events. Okay, but like, what's going on in those communities specifically, right? Because like, I think what we always have to remember is we are the vocal minority in terms of like what's happening in a game. Just because like, oh, it's not big in my city, or oh, it's not big in my Discord anymore. Okay, people got shit to do, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, people got other things going on. There's other games that people are playing. But, like, you could go the town over, and there's probably a bigger community playing different games. I mean, that's literally how it is for me in LA, where I am. Nobody plays Digimon. But if I were to go into downtown, I just refuse to do that. There's a store that has a pretty big Digimon community. If I go to Pasadena, there's core TCG over there. So, you're like, I think that the argument or the conversation is very clickbaity, to your point, Frawley, and just kind of like, I feel like this is very kind of catastrophizing something where it's just the lull that Digimon seems to have done since day one, right? There's always that period where there ain't nothing going on. But I don't know.
Asian said.
Yeah. No, and I for me, I I mean, you hit every point like as you're talking, I'm thinking through all this stuff. I'm like, well, and it's like that's the perfect summation of where the game is at. And for me, I feel like now playing different games. I think the only two like big games I haven't tried out is Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic, and I just don't know if I have like the capacity to do that, because I feel like those are the type of games that you really have to like. You can't play those casually, in my opinion. You really have to like pour yourself into if you're really going to give yourself a chance. So, but that's like right to my point is I feel like Bandai right now, they have the capacity for it. I think they have the potential to do it, but I think Bandai, from what I've seen, is a good company for casual card games. I don't think they have, at least right now, they don't have the system in place to, in any of their card games, to really support a competitive scene. Again, you look at TCPI with Pokemon, perfect, like in near perfect competitive setup. I don't know like I said, I don't know too much about Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic, but the few people I've talked to, you guys and a couple other buddies of mine that like play those games, feel like they have a pretty decent like competitive scene. I know like with Magic, like formats can get kind of like weird, and you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Obviously has been through its ups and downs or whatever. People can, but like there's a defined competitive scene for those games, right? Where I don't feel like that with anything with Bandai. So it's like, I think to Agent's point is like they just need to figure out what route they want to take and then just identify as that. They are, I think, very good at doing like they have all of the properties to make, and I think their card game designs are very good for the properties that they represent. Like playing Dragon Ball Super feels like watching the anime. Playing Digimon makes me feel like I'm watching the show because like of the way the game mechanic works. The same way with the little bit of One Piece that I've watched. So like you feel like the card game is on brand with the IP that it's representing. So they have it there. I don't think they really have full bought into we are a competitive TCG company. And to your point is maybe that's what they're trying to do with splintering off and doing this, maybe, hopefully. But yeah, with all of these recent changes we've seen and like the quote unquote decreased turnout, which I think again, it could just be attributed to maybe a bigger lull than what we've seen in the past, is kind of indicative of that, I feel like.
Well, I think summer is off season for any card game anyways, because people got lives. Like, It's nice outside. It's gonna be the winter where I'm like, y'all want to stay inside and not go outside for hours and play something that's fun. Like that's another thing I like to say. Or like kids just got back in school. Like people have lives. Like and that's, I don't know. That almost sounds like I'm talking down to people. I'm not trying to do that. Like everyone's got stuff going down. But it's one of those things where I just feel like the ebb and flow of like casual players to like people who are trying to try stuff out, that really comes like after Christmas when people got a little bit of disposable income and are like looking for something to do. And that comes at like fall where it's like, oh, it's getting chillier. Like the nights are kind of, or the days are shorter. Like I might as well go home. I might as well crank something up. And the last thing I want to touch on with the point about an online client is, it's so weird to see, again, back to the hand-me-down thing, right? Like, Dragon Balls is announced, then Digimon's is announced. Now Dragon Balls is, like, finally coming. I really hope that's not the next step on the ladder, is then Digimon's is coming, but with a huge twist and, like, a whole bunch of retired cards. So, I feel like it's hard to bank on something working out and investing the time and effort into making a Magic Online client or a Hearthstone client. But especially from what I've just seen locally with Master Duel, the amount of people who were like, oh, Master Duel is going to kill paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Like it did to Magic. And it was like, it did a little for some people, but there was way more people who were like, oh man, I built this deck on Master Duel and I've been liking it. And I know I can't fully build it in this meta, but I can build most of it. I want to build it in paper and play paper. It does get asses in seats, to steal a turn of phrase. Like,
yeah, right. Like depending on how it's used and how it's marketed, like I think it has a lot of potential to do good things for the game. I do understand like people's arguments of like why they don't want online clients for certain things. Like I get it, but like Digimon is like, it's Digimon. Like it not having an online client is weird. Like it's literally in the show, so it's just like.
It'd be on brand, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, if there's anything that deserves an online client from Bandai, it's Digimon. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I just keep seeing this damn conversation, and I rarely click on the videos. Sorry for my other content creator friends out there. I there's not much for me that can be said to convince me that the game is actually dying. It just seems like there's a lot of other games coming out that people want to try, like Lorcana, which I don't know if you guys have been trying to get into or have the chance to get into. But for those of y'all watching, go to TCG Player and just look at some of them prices, and it is insane. It is insane. So I guess that's a good segue into Lorcana itself. Frawley, I'm gonna pick on you. In regards to like prices and like demand, and like what kind of stuff like do you feel like you're seeing in your area? Being in Canada, I'm sure it's just different.
Oh, okay, so this, I will summarize my points as well as I can because I've been having this conversation a lot lately. Ravensburger and Disney. I was skeptical about a game from them, and I was skeptical about them coming into the market. Ravensburger has made 2 promises so far, or three promises? Whatever. They've made a couple promises so far, and so far they have kept good on them. The first promise they said was LGSs are getting released 1 week before, and they didn't even have it at Disney World. Like, LGSs got it first. If you were a tournament store, you got it first. That was good. That actually worked amazing. The only hiccup there was because MSRP wasn't really out there, a lot of people, and I will not name names, were charging astronomical amounts for stuff. And Ravensburger, knowing that this was happening, told all stores, do not list your prices online. Do not list your product online. Do not list your prices online. We don't want that. So it became this terrible game of telephone where you would call me, I would tell you to send in an email, I would send you an invoice, and then I would be able to show you product prices that way. Now, I love my local game store. We fought very competitively for the price. We were charging $189.99 per booster box, Canadian. Roughly translated about 150 American, 140. My conversion is a little off. So we were pretty much like $10 over what it ended up settling at most places I've seen. But I saw $422.99 on websites for booster boxes. So that scared me off the hop. The second promise they made was big box stores will be getting product, but will not be getting product as a priority. Local game stores will be getting it as a priority. So far, still true. Granted, they almost missed shipping it to Canada. Thanks for that, but they did it. But I will say, you want to talk about a launch of a game. We had it for a week, like on the 19th, I believe, August 19th. I had a couple calls. I had a couple, people interested. I had people coming in asking about it. The day it dropped in big box stores a week later on the Friday, my phone has not stopped ringing. My phone will not stop about people trying to find this product and trying to get their hands on it. And prices were pretty comparable that first week. Pretty good. Now we go to the big box store release. That also went from 330 American to 700 American. Like, it is insane to me right now what this market has done. And talk about communication between your product and the people who are going to buy it. No one knew about it, and then it hit a box store, and people watched it on TikTok, and all of a sudden, bam! Demand is through the roof. Also, any other company coming out with a TCG, please do not tell me that you're going to print enough product for there to be product for everyone. You don't know how many of us there are. You don't know how many people are very casual or very flippy about this stuff. You will never have enough product for everyone. Oh, that was it. And third promise, there was 3, that they were going to print this first set into the ground. They were going to print it forever. Don't scalp us. We will print it forever. You will get your hands on it. And so far, all that's true. Granted, it's been delayed until October. But, I mean, that's so far for a launch of a game, they are doing pretty well, and it gives me hope. Like when we talked just about communication from our company, man, all their talking points have so far been true. And I'm a pretty skeptical guy, but so far it's been landing. I really wish this product spoke to me more. Like out of 10, I think it was like an 8 out of 10 on launch, honestly. Besides that weird pricing thing online, and I get it, they didn't want people to hike up their prices, and it was kind of interesting to watch because now if you bought a box somewhere for a crazy amount, you're avoiding that company now, I imagine. Like if you paid $40 for your starter deck, are you going back there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, so I've again, referencing my limited like free time, I have dabbled in the game. I've looked a little bit. I've tried to watch some YouTube videos, and like keep up in like that space a little bit. I was able to get my hands on my locals, like Probably was saying, my locals was able to get some stuff, and fortunately was able to work a deal with me because he kind of got, I don't know how it works because every LGS I know is different with their distributor and who they have and all that. He kind of got screwed over on his distributor pricing, but I've known him long enough. He's like kind of helped me out. So between the booster box that I got, a couple starter decks, I've got some product, and I do. I think from a game design standpoint, the product, like I love it, and it makes me really excited to see what the future has for Chapter 2 and so on, right? And where they can go, what characters they can bring in, and all of that. So as far as a game design aspect, I'm really excited for it. On the price side of things, I've seen like, I mean, I think it was just a week ago I was seeing booster boxes on TCG Player going from like notable retailers that we all have seen anywhere from 300, 320, and now I can't find boxes from verified sellers, right, for anything less than 400, 420. And then we were just talking prior to this, singles prices of like what are they called? The legendaries or the enchanted foils. The enchanted foils, which don't get me wrong, beautiful cards, max rarity considered, like compared to other games and all of that. But so look at what the prices are on some of those and how they've been manipulated in the third party market, which we know that happens in every game, right? Like you can see it in Dragon Ball, Pokemon, whatever. Like you can see it wherever. We all kind of knew this. Like for me anyways, I'll speak I don't see this as a surprise. I don't see this as like, I can't believe these prices. I pretty much felt like it was going to be like this. My only thing now is I'm just kind of saying, when are they going to normalize? Because this can't be the norm where the game market stays, where the card market stays, right? Because if it is, I don't feel like any normal person can justify playing this game consistently. You can't, because anytime an enchanted comes out, anytime a legendary comes out, even some of these super rares and rares that are coming out, like cold foil versions and everything, they're too much to justify, I need a playset, or I need 2 playsets, or I need whatever. You can't do that. So I've again just kind of reaching out to some of the people in the space and like, asking, just kind of getting advice, because as a player I'm like, I want to play it, I want to try it, but what are we thinking? And the one thing I keep hearing back to is we're probably gonna have proxies for a while, because otherwise what else are you supposed to do? But I agree with Frolly as far as the launch goes. And the best part is he's able to look at it from a game like point of view, where I'm looking at it as a player perspective who's really not as involved. When we get to Asia, I know he'll be able to. I mean, this man's tearing up local, so we'll go there. But as a player perspective, I think the rollout was really good. I mean, I've actually seen product in big box stores already that are decent. My LGFs did pretty well, so it's like I'm hopeful for it, but I definitely need to see some normalization of like the third party market with singles. I think is the only, I wouldn't say gripe, but the only thing I'd have to like say about it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think, looking at the prices and how everything's being basically resold to hell, reminds me of when I was thinking about getting into Pokemon during COVID. And, like, everybody and their mama was buying Pokemon stuff. And so the Pokemon company said, cool, we're just going to reprint all this stuff, and all the value is just going to disappear overnight. And I think, like, that's basically what's going to happen going into next year. Of, like, if you got product, guys, right now, honestly, sell it. Like, after you open it and there's stuff you don't need, and even if it's pretty, just sell it. Because that's what I've been doing. Like, I'll go to my local, we'll play, and I'll get a bunch of stuff. I'll keep some stuff to give to some people at the local, and then other things, if I get my Lilo or Stitch or whatever that are for some reason worth 20, 30, 40 bucks, they can just go out the door, and I'll rebuy them for my one-of binder when the price tanks to a couple dollars, right? Like, if they're gonna keep printing this set, that's kind of where my head is at with it. I'm just hoping that for chapter 2, 3, whatever, that like we don't have this every time a set drops, right? That like we don't go through this rinse and repeat of, especially when we start getting into like actual competitive events, because they just released like a tournament manual yesterday or the day before. Like I saw a content creator breaking it down. So whenever they start doing these competitive events, this can't happen, right? Like people can't be expected to pay a premium for some of these cards that you're gonna need to play at that level, presumably. Otherwise you're gonna have to start building like some jankier stuff, which I think in Lorcana can actually work if you kind of like spend a lot of time playing against these higher level decks and just know what you have to do to kind of like move around it, and you'll probably be fine. But I think that yeah, I with Disney, it's not surprising. But what is surprising to me is the amount of people who are genuinely interested in learning the game that know nothing about card games. No shade to them, but like this is their first card game, and like it's their first experience. They're not actually trying to get into it to like buy stuff and resell it. They just want to play the freaking game, and they can't find stuff, which is the sad part. Which is why I've taken it just literally. I have just a box full of bulk, and when I go to my local, I'm like, if you want stuff, it's here, because I'm not gonna do anything with it other than ship it out. So yeah, it's I do think that the launch has been really good so far. Definitely feels better than Digimon's launch in a few years ago.
I mean, the one thing I will say about the Digi launch is we had a significant amount of product, but it was expensive, and every first set for every game since the pandemic has been the scalper market of like, oh, this is the first box, and I know how much a box of alpha magic goes for. Hold that shit. And that's become this weird mentality. Every first set can't get off the ground because we have this, but typically people fall off after the first set. Once the first set normalizes, hopefully October, usually that's when that chill down happens, because that didn't happen to Digimon's second set. Digimon's second set, that was available everywhere. So it seems to be like an opportunistic idea where people really want that first one. Lorcana wise, I mean, man, I don't know if we have time for a hot take, but goddamn, do I hate Lorcana foils. Like, where is your cool shit? Like, Big Tink alt art is dope. End of review. Like, I hate cold foils. I hate there's only a couple like really cool alternative arts. I was expecting crazy stuff out of Disney. I was expecting like serialized numbers. They're all about collecting stuff, right? Like they have those pins at the at like Disney World where you can only get certain pins certain days. I'm like, man, like where's the treasure hunt, Mickey? Like I was expecting more. But I will say, I think the thing I've come to is I'm like, man, I think they're trying to reel everybody in first. Like I think it's like, oh, get everybody in the door. Well, let's get everybody playing cool, crazy shit. Like enjoy. Well, I will say too, like no actual tournaments until the new year. So that is weird. But it also gives that time for all those reprints to come in, which is good. So tournaments aren't skewed. We don't have stuff like that. And also, please, if I can have my own personal thing, I really like that Lorcana has been doing the 4-player version. It takes cards that are garbage in 2-player and makes them actually cool and good in 4-player. And it's Baby Commander from Magic. Please support that as like another tournament. I don't care if I got to go to an event and it's just a side event. Please support that, Disney. Like that's my only want.
No, so I agree with the majority. I think to that point is like if you look at Digimon, right? When did Digimon start doing the real cool like alt arts and the different types of foils and like those kind of things? Because we didn't get those really. Like I think when was the first time we got a Ghost Rare? Right?
Ghost Rare was 6. It's a Double Diamond.
6? No, Double Diamond is Ghost Omni. Right? It was Omni.
It's the Omni from the first set, but it only came in Double Diamond.
You're right. Right? Because because it was the Ghost Omni, and then it was also the Alpha in that set, the Secret Rare, right?
Yes, because that alpha is BT9.
Okay.
For the Ghost.
Right. So that's my point is like if you want to consider like Ghost Rare, right? We're talking set 6. I 100% think that Disney could definitely do that. And I definitely see them doing that down the line. I mean, I think the Enchanted Rare, like alt foil rare, all that, I think is their tease into that, right? We've only got 12, right? And I think they're beautiful cards, by the way. I looked at every one of them. I think they're great. I think if you could like legitimately afford them, like the decks put together like that, and those like your max rare cards would look really cool. I don't necessarily disagree with the cold foil position. However, I will say this: as a Dragon Ball player, I like the fact that, and again, maybe Disney does this, farther down the line with more cards and things like that. We're starting to see that with Digimon, where they're starting to foil their commons, uncommons, and so forth, so you can like full foil a deck or whatever. But as a Dragon Ball player, I actually love that, where it's like, look, the card is an uncommon, it's a common, right, or whatever it is. You can't do an alt-art of that, but we'll give you a foil, right? We'll give you a foil of that. So it's like, I actually like the idea of that. Now, to your point, like your legendaries or your super rares or whatever, not necessarily have. I think it's just early, right? I don't think they wanted to overwhelm. Plus the fact this shows, I feel like, their level of intuition going into the market, that the reason they didn't do that is because they already knew that we were going to be in a scalper's market right off the bat. So if they did anything more than what they did do with the Enchanted, the game would be near unplayable. At least this way, you could. There's a handful of cards that you can get. I mean, a lot of the bulk stuff you really can pick up for pretty cheap. You're just looking at some of the money cards, right? If they were to like do that, the argument could be made that maybe it would flip it, but we wouldn't know, right? So I think for them, I think it's them saying, look, we have a good game, we have a good product. I think that the player anticipation is there. So let's just focus on that first. We'll worry about the artwork and stuff later. Because once people are into the game and they enjoy the game, then we'll start pumping some real resources into it and like dress it up, I feel like.
Oh, the first hit's free is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Frawley, in terms of like to a certain extent about like the foils too. But like, I just wish the card stock was better. Like the card stock be feeling like a little like, oh, I might actually bend this, trying to put this in the sleeve. Like, I just kind of wish that they like were thicker in the way that the cards felt. Especially for the there's been so many times with like a foil, I'll take it out of the pack and I'm like, oh no, it's gonna bend. So like, I don't know. That's my big thing, is just like I wish the card stock was better. And I do hope that we get like different kind of alt arts that aren't necessarily enchanted rares later, or at least give me like only foil legendaries, because this regular art legendary thing, if I don't know it's a legendary and I just pull a legendary and I have no idea, I've seen that happen to people. So many people like doing box breaks, they didn't know like that was actually the money card. They're over there focusing on this foil of a common, not realizing this Maleficent was worth money,
right?
That's the other thing.
I mean, not to run on myself already, but like the fact that we're doing the old school Pokemon thing of like, I'm gonna look at the set number and I gotta see that my set number is above the set number, so I know it's a go. If I don't know it's fire out the pack, that gets me.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think to your point too, Agent, is like with a lot of people just trying to get into the game and like just to play it, it kind of like spikes that excitement, right? Because if you haven't played games before, you don't really know. We know because we played so many games. We know what to look for. But it's somebody who has no idea. They're opening Disney cards and it's like, oh, cool, I got a foil card, and they just kind of throw it away. And you're like, bro, that's a $60 Maleficent. Chill out, like put that back. Right. If you're lucky enough or fortunate enough to pull the Enchanted, you're gonna know right away because that looks different than everything else. But it's like every one of these arts looks the same. It's just one might be shiny or not. So I get you on that point. And again, maybe down the line they do start incorporating that, because I think I do remember. I mean, I'll slight tangent here. One of my favorite cards is BT1 Seraphimon, right? You guys know that. I'll play that in any yellow deck I play. We just now, mind you, it's BT1, so over 3 years ago. We just now got like the alternate art of that card. So I do think the potential is there. I do think they'll do it. I don't know they're necessarily what their reasoning would have been for not doing it off rip. Maybe they don't want to overwhelm play. I don't know, but I definitely see it coming because I think they're going to get that kind of response from the player base. and do that. I will say one thing though, I absolutely love the backing art of this card. Like they did an amazing job on that. Because I didn't know this is what they look like because I'd only ever had proxies. So when I got my starters and everything, I cracked them like, dude, that's actually pretty. I want to actually make sleeves with that art because I don't want to cover it, you know. So I think they did a good job on the card designs.
I do feel like cold foil does definitely hit on certain markets. Like Dragon Ball, like you said, every Dragon Ball player I know wants every common and uncommon they run their deck to be foil. Digimon, they tried it with BT11, and everyone else was like, no, I want double rare per pack, please. And like even back to your point about your Serafi, I love that Serafi art, but that had to be voted on by fans 2 years down the line, and then still be voted on as it needs it. Like I'm glad that they listened to people with that. The thing that bugged me about is like if I look at the very first set for Digimon, you've got the chip background arts, you've got that War Greymon art, which is still like one of my favorite of all time. He's got it's the movie one. He's got his arm thing knocked off. He's got the bomb in the claw. Like I still look at that every day, and I'm like, oh. So I think I'm just looking at every game improving their art. Like Pokemon's improved their art significantly. Magic has gone on to like, I don't know if you guys have seen, Magic started doing anime art for this new set release. Like people are freaking out. Some people hate it, but I'm like, man, that scratches an itch for me. Like everyone's stepping up their art game that I was just hoping, especially for Disney being animators and being illustrators, I was hoping for more out the gate.
True.
That's fair. But well, speaking of Magic, and kind of, I mean, this is also related to future Lorcana stuff. Prayfully, hopefully, we shall see. Magic is doing a shit ton of crossovers. Are they not, Frawley? And like, what are some of the ones coming up?
So we got some confirmed for this year, and then we just got some teased for the next year for 2025. I don't remember what the ones off 2025 are. But the ones that are coming up big this year that I think Bill will be excited about, I'm gonna start from like my least hype to my most hype, and that is not to say that is everyone's scale. I'm putting that out in the gate. So Assassin's Creed is getting stuff. It looks like they're gonna take from most of the entire mythos. I don't know if the newest game mythos. I don't know what the newest one is. I don't think that one's gonna be in there, but almost like Altair's gonna get a card. People are gonna get cards. It's gonna be cool. They also always do pre-con decks with this. That's going to be interesting to have Altair as like a dude you can run your deck with. The follow-up from that is they're doing a full set of Final Fantasy, which I'm really hype about. So Magic Collab, they do one of two ways. Either they do what they did with the Transformers, which we're just going to take our Transformers and we're going to put them in a set that already exists, and we're just going to have that be there. They build entire sets and entire decks, like the Lord of the Rings set that came out this year was hugely popular. Or they just do Commander Precon decks that are usually a step above a regular Precon. That would be our Warhammer. Or Doctor Who, which is coming out very, very soon. So Final Fantasy is getting a whole set. They said they want to touch on games from 1 to 16, which is super cool, which means like even the MMORPG fans for 14 are gonna eat well, hopefully, and get some good stuff. And then my personal favorite, the one I'm looking forward to, but I imagine I'm not gonna see for a year, is Fallout is getting Commander exclusive decks. When they get these exclusive decks, they actually get exclusive cards in them that are that entire flavor. However, Magic reserves the right down the line to reprint it in Magic flavor. For example, you might get like a Pip-Boy. A Pip-Boy might be an artifact and it might do something. They might reprint it in Magic lore something later as like, oh, like a mystical fountain or something. Magic has been killing it, in my opinion, in like as much as we've talked about all these companies like kind of fumbling their stuff, Magic is the only person causing their own problems right now, is Magic. Like no one else is messing up Magic right now. It's just them every now and then. But it's so cool to have these things, and like I said, with the Lorcana 4-player mode, it reminds me of like a baby version of Commander, which is Magic's current long-standing format, which has become super popular. So getting Final Fantasy cards and having 16 games, like no Crystal Chronicles, no Tactics or whatever, but like that much stuff to pull from, it's gonna be a crazy set. That might be a set I try to get every character, like every protagonist, just so I can have a Zidane, so I can have a Sephiroth and all that.
It's interesting with all the crossovers, how like this is so kind of tangential, but not. But I feel like Fortnite really popularized this idea of crossover everything you can into these games. Because like I'm shocked that Magic, since Final Fantasy has a card game that exists, I'm shocked that Magic is able to get access to Final Fantasy stuff, which I think creates an interesting question for Lorcana and Star Wars, Marvel specifically, because Star Wars has a card game that hasn't come out yet, but it actually looks, I hate the artwork, but the mechanics look pretty cool. It's like Dragon Ball and Star Wars matched together with a leader system and stuff. And like, that's just coming out. So my thought was, well, Lorcana wouldn't put Star Wars stuff in at all because they have their own card game. But I don't know, now with Magic, licensing and rights are a whole other thing. And then Marvel, who knows? Marvel doesn't have like an official TCG. They have like a couple like living card games and other things running around. But how would y'all like to see either of those IPs like molded into a Lorcana? Like if you could kind of position like those things, would you want them as their own sets? Do you have another vision for it? Like how would you put those two IP into Lorcana? Or would you?
So I feel like I feel like I got to play both sides of the fence. My answer is yes and no. And I think yes, just because I'm a Marvel and Star Wars fan. Obviously. I mean, I love to see those things. However, at least early stages of Lorcana, I get the Mickey Mouse, like the Disney movie vibe, right? So it's very hard to say, let's have a Simba fight an Iron Man, right? Like that's and it's cool. Like it's a cool concept, like you said, this crossover idea. But I feel like it kind of clashes the idea of the essence of the game. So if there's a way that they can do it seamlessly, I'm all down for it because I love all of those characters. I don't, I think to your point about the Star Wars thing a little bit, maybe they're able to do it in a way where like the Lorcana version of the Star Wars thing is a little bit more geared towards that theme. And then we get to keep the more like, I guess, adult or like you said, Dragon Ball Super type of thematic, in the other one. But no, I mean, I would love to see, I mean, I get to play a deck with like Hulk in it and like Hulk and Obi-Wan get to like team up, like any of those type of crossovers would be super dope, right? Like anytime you can, I mean, we do that in Dragon Ball, right? Like you have characters, even though it's the same IP, you have characters that weren't in the same era or weren't on the same, side, whatever, and be able to team up and, things like that. You can do that with, a lot of other games. So I think the idea of it's really cool. I just think it needs to be executed well enough so it doesn't feel forced, I guess.
To backpack onto that, the joke I've been saying for forever since Villainous came out, which is also developed by Ravensburger and is like its own card game within a board game, essentially. My joke was when Star Wars got announced, because Marvel got its own version of Villainous as well, it did not combine the games. You could not combine them. People have come up with rules for that, but it cannot combine. The Star Wars one also introduced vehicles and is non-combinable. And my joke at the store for forever is let me put Captain Hook in a TIE Fighter. Like that shit's funny. So I agree with you. Again, like I pretend I have this web of I see how everything is going, but like I don't imagine Lorcana gets anything Marvel or Star Wars for like the first 6 sets. Maybe the first 10 sets. Especially because Lorcana, the one thing that really did me a solid and actually made me a little bit more interested in Lorcana as well was we have storybook cards that existed in the movies. Like we know the lore, we know what they look like, that's cool. And then we have like the Dream World stuff, right? Like we have Big Tink. We have that Scar who's entirely covered in fire. Like there is really cool stuff to play with. And I think Marvel fits into that so much better than Star Wars does. Because we have the what ifs and we have like, look at Thor's original design and tell me that it looks as good as today's design. It doesn't. But it'd be cool to have old school Thor and new school Thor. And I think this is something that people love to do with hobbies where like back in the day with Magic, because Magic, like Lorcana, is separated into those colors, and those colors do specific stuff, right? Like certain colors can draw and certain colors can do direct damage better. There's that. We used to do that all the time with taking an IP you like and being like, well, what color would that fit into? And my favorite was we did that with Warhammer. And then lo and behold, Warhammer was like, oh, bro, I got you. here's what you thought. And I was like, oh, well, I agree with 2 of the colors you put Tyranids in. I don't agree with blue. I think black should have been there, but okay, like, you almost feel rewarded for that. So I do feel like Star Wars doing its own card game is going to limit that, make that time exponentially longer until it potentially fails or succeeds. I know Star Wars also has a really popular Warhammer game right now. Like, that just came out of nowhere and is doing bonkers. So I do think we get Marvel, and I would love to see it, and I like the idea of splitting it up. Like, I don't want what Weiss Schwartz does, where like, oh, I have a Spider-Man deck, I have an Avengers deck, all the Avengers go into this deck. I wouldn't mind that. Like, I wouldn't mind some elements of that. But like Dan was saying, I want like a Green Hulk in Jade or Emerald, and I want to be able to put it with like my, oh god, I can't think of my Cruella de Vil
or something.
Yeah, right. Like
yeah, exactly.
I want that weird shit where it's like, hey man, Iron Man's in Ruby, and it's like, and Spider-Man is over here in Steel, and like, whether or not you agree with it, you can also do multiple versions of that, right? We might get regular Spidey in something, and then we put Black Suit Spidey in a different color, and then we put Scarlet Spider in another color, and then you got Tom Holland over there doing whatever he wants to do. Like, I think they have such a variety that as much as we can try, I just hope they do that where they print a set where it's Marvel and they go, cool, this is Marvel. Maybe we pick one thing like Civil War or something, and it's like, cool, divide them all up. Like, put them into different colors, make it as thematic as possible. Because that's where I feel like we were saying earlier, when I'm playing Digimon, it feels digital. Or if I'm playing Dragon Ball and like, I get the crap beat out of me, so I go Super Saiyan 2. That feels so thematic. I think that Lorcana needs to lean into that because that's what's going to keep it around. And besides that, Lorcana's already got one of the smartest things I did, which starting with the kids is smart because you get the parents in and then both parents start playing. And they're like, okay, maybe we pick up a booster box and then like we help the kids. We make them a deck. We make us a deck. Like, you reeled the whole family in. This is no longer me buying a booster box for me. This is someone buying a booster box for the whole family, and we're going to split that up into colors, and then, like, we're going to be able to play. Especially because there's 6 different colors.
Yes. So, my theory about how they're going to do this, and I brought this up on stream a couple weeks ago now, is I don't think we will get Iron Man, Hulk, all those characters anytime soon and in like the form that we expect. I anticipate them doing what they do like with Marvel Comics, where they have like special covers where it's Goofy as Iron Man or where it's Mickey as so-and-so. I think that you'll get that first as a means to test the waters, because they don't want to have the Marvel characters take over the game. Because the instant you throw in all the Marvel characters, that's all Timmy and Tommy is playing, right? They're only playing those characters, buck everybody else, which is valid. I get that. But I think, like, to test the waters, they'll probably do, like, okay, cool, so now we're going to do this thing where, like, the House of Mouse is actually the Avengers. So we're going to do them all up in, like, an Avengers garb. And then we're going to have, like, all the villains in, like, Dark Avenger stuff or, like, Thunderbolts or some superhero team. And, like, introduce, like, different items that might be from, like, you might have the Infinity Gauntlet and it's drawn in, like, some kind of way. And do it, like, that way and see, like, how much of the game is this going to take over? Because I think they could do the same thing with Star Wars, right? Because if you go to, like, Disney World and Land, there's all kinds of, like, random stuff where you see Mickey, like, battling out with some character that is not within his normal wheelhouse, right? I think that personally, I think that's how they'll start, and that's also be the way for them to skirt around the licensing stuff, right? They're not gonna have to worry about conflicting or whatever, because it's just like, it's our stuff, we just do it in the likeness of, and we just kind of have some fun and see how crazy we can get. And then maybe what they do is they take that enchanted rare of the Goofy and say, okay, cool, it's now officially Iron Man, but it's the enchanted rare, you got to go hunt for it, right? And like really kind of like make it feel special. I think that that's how they would start, because that might make the most sense, because I've also seen people being uncomfortable with the idea of like Vader banishing and not, no, he's just force choking so-and-so and you just killed, you know, you just took out like
Lilo.
Yeah, Lilo with a force push. Like that's a little much.
Wait, that's canonical. He kills younglings.
Whoa.
I'm done.
Whoa.
Oh, that'd be a song. So a song
Oh my god. Death choke is a song.
You'll just be Order 66.
Do you want to catch these hands?
Oh man.
God. Woo.
You know what? I take it back. I already want to errata myself. Why don't we just Kingdom Hearts it? Like, why don't we just introduce Sora, and then we're just like, hey man, we're gonna go to Toy Story Land. We'll do all Toy Story. And like, hey, now we're in Square Enixville. This is weird. Like, here's some Cloud and stuff. Anyways, ignore them. We're leaving them, and we'll come back maybe later.
Yep.
That's another one I'd love to see. I'd love to see them do something with Kingdom Hearts, because I think that's an also amazing and easy gateway into here's all these other random IP. Because like, I don't think they'll ever do anything with obviously Predator and Alien, because those are R-rated IPs. However, you could also pull like more soft imagery to kind of like again bringing in those parents, that audience that would be like, oh wait, what's going on here? You know, even if it's like they do something where like ships become an item. I don't know what they'd call them. You could take like the Predator ship. You could take like the Nostromo. You could take like random stuff that's relatively innocent based on like, you know, they're just items. But yeah, that's my like thought about how they would do that to start. Because every time they get asked, they're kind of like, well, you know, we can't talk. It's not a no. It's like a moving on.
I'm gonna make this striking declaration now. Everything you just said, you need to put behind a paywall, because if that ends up coming to fruition 2 years down the line, you're gonna need to take credit for that. Because I honestly didn't even think of that, and I think it's a brilliant idea. I really do, because like you said, it kind of plays on, like Frawley was saying, both demographics of adults and kids, right? Because kids still get their Mickey, but then we, as the adults, get our Vader or get our Stormtrooper or whoever, you know. And I think that's a really cool idea. I think the prevailing fact is, and this is why I think this game is, like, unless they just royally screwed up, this game cannot fail, because they have so many things that they can pull from. You guys were just talking Kingdom Hearts. I get the Fantasia vibe every time I look at this game. So like, there's so many avenues that they can go, and they've already proven just in this first set alone. Not only do you have Aladdin, you have multiple versions of Aladdin. You have multiple versions of Scar. You have multiple versions of Simba, and you know, Elsa and Aurora, and like all of these like very notable characters. They threw in a couple obscure ones. There's no way that they don't have plans for so many just like quote unquote Disney related characters before they even touch Marvel and Star Wars. Like Adrian was saying, if they ever do down the line in those type of variations. So I'm excited in any way they can kind of go with it, and being hopeful, knowing that Disney is such a creative giant in the way that they produce their materials, whether it's, you know, film, media, whatever, like now in a card game and with collaboration with Ravensburger. I'm like, I think if they stay on this track, this game could end up supplanting some of these bigger. And now I'll say this with one caveat. This is my, like, I wouldn't say this, and it was not a hot take or not errata, but like, this is like my interjection on this. If they do the competitive scene right, if when they do start launching, whether it's locals, their version of regionals, however they're going to do it, freaking, you know, world championships at Disneyland, like, I don't know how they're going to do it, but however they go about it, if they do the competitive scene right, as we were talking about with Bandai earlier, if they can do that right, this game is going to probably be one of the biggest in the world, because it's a global IP already. Like, you don't have to try to launch in other markets. It already works in global markets.
Bro,
so
we had somebody come into the shop that I play at, and I'm assuming they were traveling to LA. Like, I'm assuming like they weren't from LA inherently. I could be totally wrong and off base, but the person came over to us at the table and was like, hey, like, do you have any extra Lorcana cards? Because my shop basically does this thing where they won't sell it to anybody who's not playing in the weekly tournaments. If you're not playing in the weekly tournaments, you can't get nothing. And so the guy had told her, like, well, you know, if you go ask the players, they can sell you the packs after they buy them if you want. And like, it just came over and it was just asking to buy product off of us, which was just like a really weird experience. And I don't think I've ever seen this happen or even heard of this in like another game, where like random people who may know a little bit about the fact that Lorcana exists want to either learn how to play, want to get their hands on stuff. And we've seen people just come into the shop when we play on Saturdays and just like watch. And I've seen like little kids to like grandparents and like be fully invested in this game. So to your point, like, yeah, there's no reason, unless they royally screw up something, there is no reason why this game can't just be everywhere. When you think about all the things that Disney owns and all the different forms of media that they can just slide this game into, like it, there's no reason for it not to be absurd. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple years you start seeing it as product placements in like Disney movies. I would not be surprised if in the background you can see kids in school playing Lorcana and it's like a quick little shot. I wouldn't be surprised, because like, why wouldn't you do that, you know?
Yep.
And it's wild.
I think people forget about, not only like Disney has a wide catalog, but we forget about the sub Disney catalog. Like Aladdin had a TV show with villains and people. You can pull from that. Hercules had a TV show. There was this weird era where Disney was pumping out additional content for their shows because they knew like a movie lasts in theaters, but to keep with a kid, you got to keep giving them new stuff. So they have, like, no one's watched The Little Mermaid 2. Feel free to at me. Like, but you can pull stuff from that. Like, you have these options. It's such a deep well. I feel like the only the only potholes they can fall into is the Magic community doesn't want to back this, because Magic is so much about investing into a card and that card becoming such a valuable price point later because it's not really reprinted, or it's very seldomly reprinted. So Magic players, the number one thing I've seen from them is that they're like, oh, they're printing this into the ground, it'll be worthless. Like, this won't last. And the other side, and the most side I've seen from like Digimon or Dragon Ball or like other communities with maybe players that like, I mean, put money into your hobby, but also like don't go broke spending money on cards, is power creep. So that might be the only other thing I could see where it's like, man, there's this secret like Mickey out of one. Like, what's nice is the fact that their highest rarity is only like super rare, or sorry, the legendary rare we were saying. Like, those are still like several a box. I don't know what the pull rate is for them currently.
Out of one box, I got, I think, 3 or 4.
So unless they introduce like a secret or something that like is 1 per box, maybe, that might also stifle them if they print something so good and players get dejected because a deck they played 3 sets ago isn't as good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be typical trading card game BS, and how well they navigate that. It is really going to be kind of like their major issue. I think that they have the benefit, though, of really good PR so far. I mean, they're way more active than the Digimon Bandai folks when it comes to letting people know what's going on in plenty of time, right? Like Digimon, like, hey, this set we just told you was coming out tomorrow. Yeah, it's not coming out till next month. Sorry, you know. And Ravensburger has been very like, this is what's happening. We're printing it this much. We're going to be doing this. Like, they're very, very clear about, like, what's going on. Whether it happens or not is a whole other conversation. But, like, they're at least doing the work to kind of, like, let players know this is what's up. So, yeah, this should be an easy home run, and this should become, like, one of the greats, in my opinion. Like, it should supplant a lot of games and be, like, in the top, like, 10 minimum every year for the foreseeable future.
Well, that'll be my hot take. I'm gonna call it now that it's gonna be top 5. I like easily. I think within the next, I'll call it 2 years. I think in 2 years it'll be top 5, because of 2 things. I think as long as they stay on a developer standpoint with the game design, like Frolly was saying, and don't power creep too hard. Like, we know that happens in card games. Like,
it's gonna happen.
Because like big numbers have to happen, right? Like, you know, 70 HP Pokemon was cool back in the early, the late 90s, but now it's like, so like I get all of that. So you do have to like, but if they're able to manage that and make it to where, people stay intrigued enough in the game and not, like Farley said, not feel dejected. Agents said, like, they already have the PR team. They already have the machine working. And I don't, at least from what I've seen, I don't think they really care about the collector market. I think because they're a consumer company, they care about the consumer base, which are the players. They don't care about, oh, we want to make these cards so unattainable that, people are going to want to collect them. And, they don't need to worry about that. They're so big. They're like, we're everywhere. We're not hard to get. So what we want to do is we want to create a card game that's going to be everywhere. How do we do that? We print it everywhere. because we want to be in that top 3, top 5 conversation of TCGs. Why? Because Disney wants to be the best at everything. So I think that's where, like I said, as long as they stay on that track, like I don't see them not doing that.
And I think to your point, Dan, where you'll get those collector stuff, it's going to be the Gen Cons. It's going to be the come to Disney and come play this thing and get the like that. The collector stuff isn't going to be from the boxes. I mean, for right now, it is because scalpers and blah 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 blah. But like, it's the same freaking card. Like the Gen Con Mickey, it's the same thing. So like, I don't care. I'm not spending $5,000 on it. But like, people do and they will. So I think it's going to be like the equivalent of like Dragon Ball's God Rares, only you got to go to an event to get it. And I think that's probably better for the game because of the fact that this is now it's become a family affair, right? It's become get everybody involved. We want to get people involved, and even just doing like collector stuff from tournaments where like, hey, we want people to come out to these tournaments because that's an opportunity to hit them up with, upsell them with Villainous and other games and other stuff that Disney has going, that Ravensburger's got going. It's a perfect meeting point for all these things. And to kind of like circle that back to Bondi real quick, honestly, I feel like Bondi should try and do that with all their games. Have like when you do your nationals, do your finals and stuff like that, like have them all happening. Like let people play, you know, in different ones at the same time, but like have them all in like one location so that the Dragon Ball players can actually see what Digimon's about, and that Digimon can see what One Piece is. Like if you're gonna run 5 games at once, like build it like they are a family of card games, and we want people to hop from game to game because they release sets like they want you to play everything, right? Because Dan and I were saying, like, when we play Digimon and Dragon Ball, when Digimon doesn't have a set, Dragon Ball has a set, and vice versa. But like they don't seem to expect you like to promote you playing everything. It's like if you do, cool. If you don't, sucks to suck.
Yeah, they don't promote it. They don't support it, I guess is the like you as a player just have to go out there and do it. It's
little brother syndrome. Like I feel like they got everybody in separate rooms, and it's like no, like I don't want to be seen hanging out with my little brother. He plays Digimon. That's just lame. Like they almost keep that almost segregated, where it's like we are acknowledging the timetable. Everybody's getting like, man, I've never wished I've owned a printing press more in my life. Like just buying time on a printing press right now is crazy. And like if Ravensburger and Disney want to keep this up, like my joke when this game was coming out was I'm like, the only company right now that has enough money to lose on a card game for 2 years and keep it going is Disney. Like Disney could be in the red for the first 2 years of this game and still come out in the green come year 3, year 4, if it does manage to succeed. And I'm glad that like you said with Fortnite, I don't know if that's truly the purveyor of putting everything together, or this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe bleeding into everything else, where it's like, oh, we just put them all together. Like, I'm loving that you've got the different flavors, and like we can have people invest in like the fact that they're launching with 2 games at once. It's the same game, but 2-player and 4-player. That already makes you invest in cards that you might not care about already. Like, or track down cards that you're like, oh, I have a side deck of 10 cards. Because this is me if I'm playing against you. But, oh, we're playing as a person of 4-pod. Let me take these cards out. Let me put these 10 cards in. This deck is still that deck. And I hope crossovers continue in this way. Like, what I found funny about Magic doing all of its collabs, like, so to say, is if you aren't playing Modern and you aren't playing Commander, which are like the sets that go the farthest back, Standard doesn't have Transformers. Like Standard right now feels like the anti, like I don't want to play with Lord of the Rings cards. That's lame. Like I'm not doing that. So they have their format for that. And they also have these formats for guys who are like, oh yeah, so I built this deck forever ago and it runs these 3 colors, and because it runs those 3 colors, I got Megatron in this deck. And I got Gandalf in this deck. Like I got cool one-of cards that do things that I like. And because I like these cards, I invested in the alt arts, or I invested in some pretty foils of it, and like I just made this deck me. And I hope Lorcana can get to that point.
Yeah, it's been fun to see all the different kinds of decks that people are trying to build, like the princesses, the bodyguards, or I can't remember what they call them, the musketeers, and like in the villains. Like I'm really curious to see where they're gonna go with these future archetypes for this game. And to start talking about it every month within our like little group of games, which, like I said, guys, is expanding beyond Digimon. Not because the game is dying, but because we're playing a lot of different things simultaneously. I think I'm literally playing 4 games right now. So
because we have too much time on our hands.
Yeah. Time and money is a dangerous thing. But I think we can go ahead and wrap for this month. I don't know if anybody has any closing remarks they want to make to the people.
I'll just say, I mean, I'll kind of just echo Frawley's opening point, because I was so ingenuous of stating it to the beginning because I wasn't thinking about it. I'm just happy to be back, man. It's honestly, it's real cool to like hang with you guys again and like and kind of get this back out here because I do enjoy it. I had a lot of fun doing it. I know like with all of us, you know, life catches up with us and you know, but it's like every once in a while you need to like. You were just saying the whole like time and money. I'm like. It is, and it's like having grown up resources, but with kid like mentality. Sometimes it could be, but I'm like, you need that because after everything that like I've been into the last month and a half, it's like being able to do this and like kind of come back to just like a more casual, just kind of like let's just kind of shoot the breeze and talk about current state of the things that we're interested in, and maybe spark a discussion about it. I think it's really cool. So yeah, I'll close with that. As I'm real grateful to that we still get to do this, even if it's a little bit longer of a span since the last one. It's real cool to still be able to link up with you guys and be able to do that.
Yeah, man. Same friends, same nerds, different card games. Like that's it. And what I like is this gives us the reason to branch out and try new things. Like I know I was like I didn't reach out to the Dragon Ball pool. And like, but like Lorcana has got me a little bit where like I'm interested enough to try it. And definitely when you got homies who have 2 decks of a game you've never played, you might as well play a game or 2, man. Like you never know what you're gonna find. And yeah, no, I'm real happy to be back. I'm glad that we get to share these hobbies and we get to speculate on stuff and like trying to guess the ending to a movie is like half the shit I like. So I like doing that every month with you guys about card games. Hashtag put Captain Hook in a TIE fighter.
Watch that start trending. I'm gonna love that.
Put Captain Hook in a TIE fighter.
That's gonna be Frawley's goal for Lorcana. That's the objective. Captain Hook in a TIE fighter.
Whoever does it first. If Magic does it first, if Lorcana does it first, if Villainous does it first, man, I don't care.
Jeez. Kingdom Hearts 4. You never know. Or
True.
4? Yeah, you never know. But all right, guys. Yeah, it's great to like be back and talk about all this nerd stuff, and all the different card games going on and all the different things we're doing. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to this month's episode. We'll be back next month, and I think by then will we have RBO1 Digimon to talk about? I don't know. We might have some Digimon stuff.
Yeah, reprint set ended this month.
Okay,
yeah.
So yeah, we'll be able to talk about. Frawley can tell us about Gamamon because the rest of us probably ain't buying the set, so so we can rely on Frawley for that, and hopefully by then we can really dive into some more Lorcana. Anyway, y'all, it's been real. Appreciate you. We will see you in the next episode. Peace.